Okay, we're back for part two, and this is where we're going to really dive into where each person is different and those critical issues we need to think about on the differences of each person. So let's jump in. Let's talk about budget. Budget is so important from the financial planning process. We need to know how much you make, but we also need to know what your bills look like, and that really changes everybody's individual situation. And when it comes to building an income plan, having an understanding of your needs is so important. So we got to break it down into two categories. It's the I have to pays and the I want to pays, right? You got to think about what is it that you need to pay versus what you want to pay to enjoy retirement. Break this budget down, get a good understanding of this budget. Our goal is to have guaranteed income pay the I have to pays, and your savings can certainly pay the I want to pays. In a perfect world, this makes people very comfortable with their finances. Once they realize that all their I need to pays are covered by guaranteed income, they look at that big pot of gold they saved their whole career and say, holy cow, we get to just go have fun with this. Right? Because if we happen to run out of money, I still have enough for the I need to pays. And that's really important. So starting with the budget, that has to happen. Okay. The next part is understanding your savings and the tax classes that it's in. Okay. Everybody has different amounts of IRA, Roth, after-tax money. And so we have to understand the rules about this money because it's going to change how we're going to choose to invest this money. IRA money, everything is taxed as ordinary income. And you have to think about this. This is so important that we understand where this money came from, why we save this way, because we always seem to hate this money in retirement, but we had a huge benefit. In our working years, we were paying a lot more in taxes, right? So we have to recognize that we chose to save in this pre-tax fashion. This, I don't have to pay taxes on it now because I'm making extra money and I'm in higher tax brackets. We're choosing to postpone it to our later years when we retire, and most people end up making less money in retirement. We don't have debt, we don't have a mortgage, we don't have any of that stuff. And so our income needs are less in retirement usually, okay? So because of this, the day you retire, this is where your withdrawals are going to come from. The more you spread out your IRA withdrawals over your lifetime, the less taxes you're going to pay on it. The biggest mistake people make with their IRAs is big, huge withdrawals without regard to taxation. And when you take lots of money out of IRA pool of money, all at once, you're going to pay enormous tax rates. The way our taxation works is one bracket at a time. If you have a huge income one year, you're going to pay a whole lot of extra taxation. So we need to avoid that. We need to pull a little bit out every single year. So because we're going to be withdrawing from here most likely throughout our retirement, stable, safe investing produces better results. And the more stable, safe investments we push into our IRA, the less we have to have throughout the rest of the portfolio. On top of this, our heirs hate this money and they usually make mistakes. Not only do we have a very uneducated advisor world out there, when you make those phone calls and talk to customer service, they're just reading what their computer tells you to do. So some mistakes come because of that. Other mistakes come because your heirs are inheriting this money and either cashing it all out at once, or they're waiting the 10 years and taking it all out at the end of 10 years. And with IRA money, those are both huge mistakes, okay? So your heirs love Roth money because they can let that sit and grow for 10 years and there's no tax consequences. So it's perfect for somebody that doesn't have a plan, right? Just let it sit there and grow. Let it sit there and grow. I mean, some kids are still going to pull it out and buy their Corvette, but the reality is this is tax-free money. It gets to grow for 10 years after they inherit it. So it's their favorite money. So things that we have to understand for our own portfolio. Well, if we're trying to produce income, tax-free income is wonderful. The flexibility of withdrawing money for tax with no tax consequences is important. But also from an investing standpoint, we can invest in things in our Roth that we typically are not going to invest in the IRA or after-tax money. Right? So publicly traded REITs, MLPs, closed-end funds, these are all high income producing type investments that are terrible on taxation, but they can be great in Roth, creating good, stable, consistent yield coming out of that portfolio. And we don't care if there's K1s when it's in the Roth. We don't need those for our tax return, which is wonderful, right? We have to keep in mind, aggressive investing is probably not a great idea in Roth because losses are absolutely worst here, okay? So in your IRA, if you had $100,000 and you lost $50,000, you only have $50,000 left in there, right? Well, if you pulled that out, you only pay taxes on the $50,000. You didn't have to pay taxes on the 50 that you lost, right? On after-tax money, on that non-qualified after-tax money, you get to write off those losses. So yes, you pay taxes on the 100,000, but if you lose 50,000, you get to write off those losses. Whereas Roth, you don't get to write off those losses. You have to pay taxes on the money before it goes in there. And this is that give and take. It's never going to be taxed again, but you don't get to write off your losses. So losses in Roth are the worst place to have losses. Nobody likes losses, but they're less painful in IRA and non-qualified money. So something to keep in mind when you're choosing how to invest that Roth account. And then there's after-tax money, non-qualified money. Sometimes this is trust money owned by the trust, okay? Each investing choice in this part of your portfolio comes with different tax consequences. This is where it's ridiculous to have an advisor that says, oh, I can't talk about taxes. Well, everything they do has to do with taxes. They're choosing investments in this part of the portfolio. They're choosing on which part of the portfolio to pull from when you need money. They're creating the income plan to meet your needs. They have to understand taxation. If you're going to have an efficient portfolio, an efficient income plan, boy, somebody has to understand taxation. There's no way to build an efficient income plan without understanding taxation. And we have lots of great opportunities in this after-tax money if done properly, okay? As a rule of thumb, we need to avoid interest-bearing investments here. And we also need to avoid those high turnover mutual funds that create non-qualified dividends and short-term capital gains, which also means those actively traded portfolios. We got to get out of that stuff. We shouldn't be in there in this part of the portfolio. So no CDs, no corporate bonds, no active traded portfolios, no mutual funds. We stay away from those types of investments in this part of the portfolio to create a much more efficient portfolio for you. So qualified dividends are taxed at much lower tax rates. Long-term capital gains are taxed at much lower tax rates. So we need to understand all of these things to invest this part of the portfolio correctly. All right. Well, the other thing we have to understand is if you don't need this part of your portfolio, there's a huge advantage to you and your heirs, which is the step up of basis upon death. Okay. You buy an S&P 500 fund and let's say you put $100,000 in it, and 15, 20 years later, it's $300,000. Okay. So you got 200,000 in growth. If you sell that, you're going to have to pay taxes on it. Lower taxes, it'll be a long-term capital gain, but you still will owe taxes on that. If this is a joint account and a spouse, either or spouse passes away, the basis steps up and nobody's going to owe the taxation. You can sell it immediately, okay, for $300,000 and nobody has to pay those taxes. That's the important part to understand. So if you pass away, this part of your portfolio steps up its basis to the value of when you passed away, and that taxation disappears. So we have to understand taxes. This part of your portfolio, really, really, really important that we invest it properly for your specific needs. If you don't need this part of your portfolio, if you don't need what I call passive income that we'll talk about from dividends and things like that, then we shouldn't be generating that. That's just noise on the tax return causing taxation that was unneeded. So we should invest with that step up basis in mind. Okay, so taxation becomes really important, and what tax bracket you're in, the mix of money that you can't control, and then adding on the lower taxation from there. So for single people, $60,000 is that 12%, top of the 12% tax bracket, and for married people, that 12% is $120,000. Okay. So that's usually a benchmark for a lot of retirees out there. If you need more money than 60 or 120, then we start looking at the lower taxation investing strategies, whether it's qualified dividends or long-term capital gains, municipal bonds, withdrawals from Roth. These are all things that help us get more income, but don't have to pay that 22% tax bracket. And the same thing goes for people that are in the higher tax brackets, the 22, 24. If you're above 24%, then you have a lot of wealth, and there's a lot more we have to consider, obviously, in those cases. So the reality is that where you're at in these tax brackets and what your needs are will dictate a lot of the investing strategies as well, and utilization of some of this lower taxation investing strategies out there. Okay. So now there's 3 different types of income. And that's what we're going to talk a lot about, is all the different tools within these 3 different types of income that are out there. So when we talk about guaranteed income, this is that paycheck that comes in whether you have money or not, right? So this is what's going to pay those base living expenses. This is your pension, your Social Security, and then if you have to, those income annuities are the only other choice for guaranteed income, which, believe it or not, pensions and Social Security really are income annuities. And then there's the passive income. Okay, these are usually those dividend payers. These are the ones that fluctuate year to year. This is not needed to pay the bills. If your dividend portfolio gets cut down by 20%, it doesn't change your retirement, right? So this is that passive income, little extra money here and there helps out along the way. And that's dividends, interest payers, a yield coming out of a portfolio, those closed-end mutual funds, those publicly traded REITs, structures like that, that are not always dividends. And honestly, interest payers at this point, we started realizing, hopefully you've realized at this point, that individual bonds are risk-based now, right? But they also can be called due. And so you're halfway through a period and they just hand you your money back. Well, CDs can do the same thing to you. So if we see big adjustments in interest rates and they don't want to pay that interest rate anymore, then they're going to call those due. And I think people are going to have their eyes wide open real quick when interest rates come crashing back down again, because someday they will. All right. So then there's the withdrawal income. So again, 3 kinds of income. One that just keeps coming in whether you have money or not. One that's kind of flexible, comes up and down, just take what you get out of it and you're happy. And then there's the withdrawal to cushion that. So when the passive income wasn't enough, you can then make withdrawals. We see this when it comes to required minimum distributions, or maybe you have a more expensive vacation, or you need to buy a car. So excess money needed above the guaranteed income and passive income. So when you're planning, you need to have the flexibility of all 3 of these, and making sure that one cushions the other. So when the market's not doing well and your passive income's not coming in as much as it used to, then maybe the withdrawals are going to be where you're going to lean on that, which means you need to have safe, stable investments. And so the next session in this is going to talk about all the tools within these different types of income. So part 3, stay tuned. That's going to help you out in understanding the types of investments that are in each of those categories. Hopefully this helps. Hopefully this is interesting and entertaining for you. Click the like button so I know that this is the type of material you enjoy out there, and certainly share it with friends, and keep coming back every week, because we keep posting more and more education on all different topics that we can come up with. If I haven't covered something that you want me to talk about, shoot me a note, shoot me an email, give us a call, or even just utilize the comment section below. Always happy to help out and create more education or answer questions. And if we can help in any way, always happy to set an appointment. We're live via Zoom nationwide. We've got clients all over the United States and, strangely, all over the world at this point. People keep moving and enjoying this world out there. So thanks, and we'll see you next week. Stay tuned for part 3. Thanks again. Bye.